Hello, this is Tess Lorraine with the Sonoma County Parkinson's Support Group. This month's speaker presentation will be by Cheryl Fox, called COVID, Where Do We Stand? Cheryl Fox, RN, is the president CEO of Fox Health. Cheryl has worked in most of the area's large healthcare systems, winning many of these first awards for service and excellence. Known for her innovative thinking, she questions those who recommend her from inside the conventional thinking box by asking, "What box?" Believing she could help people stay in their homes safely, she stepped away from these large healthcare systems and started her own home healthcare business out of her car trunk in 2005 while teaching vocational nursing program classes at local colleges. Cheryl is now the proud owner of Fox Home Health, a premier private duty nursing agency in Santa Rosa, California, that pioneered vaccine and COVID testing in Sonoma County access from clinic setting to homebound. Welcome, Cheryl.
I'm really pleased to be here today, and I'm really pleased to be able to share with you some of what the experience has been in the last 2 years. It's hard to believe it's 2 years, and in other respects, it seems like forever ago. Just a little background and history about why I'm speaking about COVID when there are others who perhaps have different experience and could share in different ways. In March 2020, when we were declared to go into lockdown, my concern was that I would be losing my business, if not losing my own life. And it seemed to me that there were no real cohesive directions available as to what to do or how to combat this disease. Later to only find out it's because nobody knew about what we were about to expect, unlike what we had seen in previous years or previous diseases. So I volunteered my time and I volunteered my staff time. As soon as available, we started doing COVID testing in residential care facilities for the elderly. And I also consulted with Dr. Mark Lovato and Rachel Perez at the county level public health to be able to implement something in home care that helped the home care workers and the people who were homebound stay safe. So some of what I'm going to share with you now is some of a presentation that I gave throughout the county. We actually did over 5,300 home health workers information on how to keep safer before we knew what we were actually dealing with. So as I bring those slides up, we'll talk about it in a less formal aspect and apply it to where we are now. But I just wanted to take a little look at our history and where we've been. So again, talking about the year 2020, we had so many pressures. I don't know how any of us survived, let alone COVID. We had economic pressures, there were the pandemics, there was so much social unrest, political discord, the fires were happening, kids were out of school. We were learning to do homeschooling. Many of us were learning to work from home. Those of us that were working with our medical professions learned how to either do Zoom meetings or telephone calls rather than going in and being checked. And for a lot of us, the knowing who exactly to trust was becoming more and more difficult to know. I called it, this is the reason this wacka crock is up is because that's what I kind of named it myself, was that what we were doing with COVID was like playing whack-a-mole, but only with crocodiles. And every time you thought that you had one crocodile under control and that you could just move on and take care of the rest, you'd find that there were multiple crocodiles and that they were coming at multiple angles. And it was really devastating and extremely terrifying at all levels. There we go. So some of what we did when we had what's called the novel virus, meaning that although COVID is something that you could pick up a bottle of Clorox bleach and it says kills the COVID virus, the COVID-19 was a novel virus, so we didn't have a lot of background or information about it. We had to go back into our own history in healthcare and science and determine what actually would be of benefit to us to be able to, if not mitigate the disease, prevent the spread. So we went back to look at what happened from the bird flu in 1918, and they were washing their hands and wearing masks. And many of us went to work right away making masks. I was one of those people, and I don't sew, so they were pretty humorous looking masks, but they worked, you know, so it was okay. And good hand washing. That was the first time we actually used good hand washing. And so those are things that we've adapted, and I would really highly recommend not go away anytime soon. Oh, so let's just repeat. And then there was polio, and I venture to guess the majority of us remember polio, and we remember the fact that polio was treated initially with iron lungs, and we're devastated. I know I had a classmate in first grade who left and didn't come back until third grade, who lived in an iron lung and ended up with lots of paralysis from having polio. And 5 years in, Jonas Salk invented the polio vaccine, in which should I mention the fact that he didn't patent it or sell it. He just said, this is what needs to be, and everybody got it. So there was none of the financial background that we oftentimes see. And the vaccines were administered first in injections and then later in sugar cubes. And I was really ticked off when they would only give you one sugar cube, because they felt like that was pretty tasty stuff back then. And to this day, polio is eradicated in most countries of the world. The only country it is not eradicated in is Africa. And that was not due to herd immunity. It was not due to anything other than the fact that vaccines became available to lots of people. And then there was smallpox, which was horrific. I hate looking at these pictures, but I could only imagine what it was like to have smallpox. And in 1980, through vaccination alone, we were able to eradicate smallpox from the world completely. There's not been a reported case of smallpox since 1980, although they held on to the virus itself so that for research and study, and the potential someday that might not be true, and that we need to start over again. So that's what happened with our vaccines. There. So our new history is COVID. COVID-19 novel virus that tends to want to, at first it spread easily. We had no treatments for it, or very few treatments for it. And our death rate now in the United States is upwards at close to 1 million deaths from COVID virus. My sister-in-law was one of the first people in Sonoma County to die from COVID. Some of my background happens to be hospice, and I'm really used to being at the bedside and being able to help. I was devastated when I actually had to say goodbye to her after 47 years via FaceTime. So it created a whole new world of fear and not knowing exactly what would happen, what's going to happen. And this picture actually, it's everywhere. It's been everywhere. I'm sure we've all been exposed, even if we haven't all had it. Hopefully our immunity has been able to ward it off. But frequently touched surfaces not only hold the virus, but hold it for longer periods of time than other viruses, even the HIV virus, which is very fragile and cannot live outside a warm, moist host for very long. The COVID virus can live outside of a warm host, and it can live longer than most viruses. So it became lethal, and the reason for shutting down, and hopefully it was going to be for a couple of months, and here we're still talking about, can we meet together, and it's 2 years later. So when the virus doesn't travel, people travel. And if people have the virus, even if they're not showing signs or symptoms of it, the virus can be transmitted to other people. One of the things that's important to know is Sonoma County is looking great. I'm going to show you the statistics in just a few minutes. So we're looking great, and I'm really proud of that, really happy for that. But the majority of the world is not vaccinated. There are many countries that have barely started vaccinating and have very low percentages. So the variant is very much like a transformer and grows only in those who are not vaccinated. So all the people who are not vaccinated can not only contract the COVID virus, but they are also become the manufacturing for the variant. And the variant is very, very much like a transformer. So it may start off as an airplane, but it turns into something worse and worse and worse. We have been graced with, quite frankly, that Delta and Omicron have not been as devastating as the original COVID-19, and partially because we have treatment methods that we hadn't had before. But the potential that we could be back at March 17th, 2020 again is very real. We don't know what's going to happen. We're going cautiously as they can with vaccines. As far as age groups, we're now coming on to probably the 1st of April, 6 months to 5 years will also be approved. But nobody knows if the shoe's going to drop again, or if it's going to drop, when it's going to be. We're looking at probably a 3 to 4 month period where things are going to be looking really, really great. I'm going to be really interested in seeing what happens after all the spring breaks happen. And then as of yesterday in California and in Sonoma County, the mask mandates, the grouping, et cetera, has been lessened. So in about 2 weeks, we're going to be able to see if there's a difference, if we really truly are in an endemic. And hopefully, if that's so, that it lasts for a long time. But again, take into consideration that there are people coming from outside of our community into our community, and they may not be as well protected as we have been. And again, this showing a group of people packed in closely wearing masks, which I'm really glad for, that they're wearing masks. But the one thing that is true is that they're very, very close. I kind of designated myself as the vaccine and testing queen of Sonoma County. I don't know that anybody else did that. But last weekend, I went to a large gathering and I thought, I'm not wearing a mask. And I was close with people. And you know what? For the first time in 2 years, on Tuesday, I had the flu. For 2 days, it was light. I'm really glad it was light. I did not test positive for it. But I think that some of what we've learned to date about the masking, especially if you're in a high risk group, and social distancing, great hand hygiene cannot be said enough. So I actually don't see that going away in my lifetime. And I would hope that there are a lot of people who decide that that should be a way of life. Now, as far as masks go, these surgical masks are more effective than the cloth masks. Double masking is really a great idea too. But the thing is that we also need to look environmentally. So if wearing 2 cloth masks protects our environment a little bit more than wearing one mask that's going to be disposable, I really would encourage people to consider that. Again, we're working with a virus versus a bacteria, and the situation with that is there's nothing that truly is treatable as far as a virus goes. Bacteria can be treated, and so sometimes when people do contract COVID, they'll have a comorbidity that is an infectious process, and oftentimes that's a pneumonia. They can be treated with the bacteria, but the virus itself does not have anything that treats the virus as effectively as we would like to see it. We'll talk a little bit in a minute about Pfizer coming out with an antiviral that is supposed to have 90% effective rate that will decrease hospitalization by 90%, but it's yet to be shown, it's yet to be proved, and it's still an EUA or emergency use authorization only. Nobody knows the long-term effects of the vaccine. Which is true to some degree, but I don't know why this didn't get brought up more, or why it wasn't in the news more, but the RNA vaccine actually had been studied since 1960. But there was technology that didn't allow what they knew about the RNA to be able to be converted to the mRNA and be acceptable into the human body to be of assistance in preventing disease. So we know more about the vaccine than we know about COVID. And COVID itself has long-term disabling effects, including death. But the vaccines, at the time I made this slide, we'd done over 7 million people. We've vaccinated 7 million people, and there were just a handful of side effects. There were very few side effects. The one nice thing about the mRNA vaccine is it enters your body, it stimulates your immune system to build immunity against the COVID-19 virus, and it's excreted through the liver and kidneys within 6 to 8 hours. So it's not something that stays within you. It's just meant to go into your body, stimulate the immune response, and then be excreted. Now, let me also say, some people will say, I had COVID, so I have immunity. Well, it's true. When people have COVID, they do acquire an immunity, but the immunity is short-lived and dissipates quickly. So anywhere from 60 to 90 days, you probably have a pretty good immunity. But after that 90 days, it starts slacking off dramatically. I've known people that had COVID 2 or 3 times before they finally got vaccinated. And they have very, we don't know if it's going to be long-term or not, but they have varied effects, from the foggy brain to joint pain to, I have one person that I work with who had COVID twice, and I can walk into the office and she'll be sitting at her computer staring at the screen and her hands poised to type, and it's like a focal seizure. And then it'll go away and she's right back to what she was doing. Lots of leg pain, lots of foggy brain. And it seems to almost be as unique to the individual as to what complications can have. And of course, if you have comorbidities such as congestive heart failure or diabetes, you're obese, you have Parkinson's disease, these long-term effects and the devastation of the disease is even greater, because your body isn't necessarily functioning at the 100% capacity to ward off the bacteria, the virus itself, but it's also not working at 100% to keep you as healthy as you have been. So when we say 32 people that were vaccinated actually required hospitalization during this last surge, it's hard to differentiate, because we don't necessarily know their age. We don't necessarily know what their comorbidities were, and they don't necessarily know what brought them into the hospital. They may have come in with one disease process, but because they tested positive for COVID, that kind of bumps it up on the scale for them. So, and interestingly enough, of those 32 people who were vaccinated with at least 2 vaccines that were hospitalized during this last surge, only 2 of them died. 30 of them lived, and the 2 that died were not boosted. So we're all at risk. I think that we're all frail elderly, regardless of what our age is. And the bottom line is, we don't know. And so the importance of being able to protect yourself and take care of yourself, boosted or not, vaccinated or not, is self-care. And so this is a lovely setting. I would love to be able to sit and be with family and have family dinners in a closeness I think not only physically, but mentally, that's really impaired many of us, is that we don't have the closeness of other human beings over the past 2 years that we would like to have. But we need to really analyze where we're at and make a decision on how that happens. It may need to happen differently now. So this family event, I would never say you shouldn't have it, but I think that you need to think about the fact that maybe it's meeting outdoors, or it's a more ventilated area so that you can go without your masks. Maybe the seating would be a little bit further apart. And I'm actually planning a celebration of life, and I was thinking about chips and dips, and I'm thinking, those are the kinds of things I need to think about, is that maybe we shouldn't be having a potato chip that could be going back into the dip a second time. Of course, it needs to be outside, and that we need to think about, I was seeing over these last 2 years, videos of people singing happy birthday and blowing out their birthday cake. Well, maybe we need to go to something like cupcakes, where everybody has their individual cupcake and the birthday person blows on only their cupcake, or fans it out, or figures out a new innovative way, rather than somebody blowing on a cake that's going to be served to a number of people. So to think that the CDC, the FDA, although I think the government's trying as hard as they can, I think that we need to think about all of these things, and think about what we need to do, because we're the ones that need to be the responsible ones. We've learned early on that if we're going to rely on somebody else to tell us, we may not get the information that we need to. And the danger is everywhere. Good hand hygiene, I cannot say enough about it. The wiping down frequently used surfaces, I'm going to say it a million times. The wearing the masks, especially when you're in areas that you're not comfortable with or you don't know, essential. If you're going to be in an area with other people, social distancing and good ventilation, I cannot see it going away personally. I think that we've just come through something so horrific that we all need to take our own personal responsibility. So this actually speaks to, and if some of you have caregivers, these are things that you need to really talk to your caregivers about too, is that during the pandemic, our residential care facilities and our skilled nursing facilities were hardest hit. And how did that happen? In part was that many of the people who provide care in those facilities, lovely people, adore them. And it's a really low cost, low paying position that they're in. So many of them have more than one job. So some people were going from residential care facilities to skilled nursing facilities and then going back to their home. So those were super spreaders. And one of the things that we did was we went to these people at any level that we could get them, and we talked to them about using protective equipment. We talked to them about wearing masks. And we also talked to them about going home and changing their clothes between jobs when at all possible. There were several skilled nursing facilities in Santa Rosa who not only paid their employees, but allowed their employees to come, shower, and change at their facility so they could get to work. But it was just another way to hopefully prevent the disease and the spread. We actually didn't see a decline in numbers, however, until the vaccine became available and all staff and all patients and or residents were able to be vaccinated. Well, I don't know if you've heard that it's no worse than the flu, but I've talked to some people. It's like, I test all my employees. I've been testing all my employees since we were finally able to get testing supplies, which was probably mid-April, after closing down in March. And I've had employees come in that test positive that have no symptoms at all. But I've had other employees and other friends and so on who have what's called long hauler syndrome, which I talked about just a moment ago. the respiratory symptoms, foggy brain, blood clotting disease, inability to perform usual functions and duties, and many more things. Like I said before, it's just as unique to the individual as it is as the disease has been unique. Robust people who are out there working all the time, bike riders, athletes that aren't able to complete their tasks or their enjoyment because they just get so exhausted. And oftentimes if they do, then they have to go and nap. So there's a good reason to prevent COVID. Nobody wants it. It's not like the flu. It's much, much worse. Again, wearing your mask, social distancing, comprehensive hand washing, even if vaccinated. Now, I said comprehensive because I couldn't spell the word I want to put in there. But Siri was able to figure out how to spell comprehensive. So it may be the wrong word. I'm sorry. So the other thing about COVID that is, that I have been taken by, but it's not just with COVID, it's with everything that's going on in our world right now. At one point in time, I think it was in June 2020, I just got this doom and gloom about me. And I just thought, this is apocalypse. Everything that we're seeing, the social unrest, the political things that are going on, COVID, my business is kind of slowly slipping away. And so I just decided we were in a phase of apocalypse. And this is what we were going to be living with for the rest of our lives. And I drove downtown Santa Rosa, which is my hometown, born and raised here. And there are these huge cement barricades everywhere because they're going to be protesters over George Floyd's murder. And my nephews are police officers, and to see these barricades and to know that my babies are the ones that are carrying the riot gear and so on, just only confirmed that this is apocalypse, just totally apocalypse. And being the good old hippie that I am, I had my radio on. And as I drove away with tears in my eyes, it started playing Aquarius. And, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. I won't sing because I don't want you to have bleeding ears. But after the song ended, I just felt this peace and this calm come to me. And this voice came in my head and said, apocalypse or Aquarius. I've always given you choice. I'm giving you choice now. And so I chose Aquarius. I've been working diligently, probably having some of the best time in my life in an area of diversity. And one of the most important parts of that is being wise about who I'm listening to, doing fact checks, finding information that you need to know from responsible sources. Again, I go back to the disease and the disease process has to be science-based. It can't be, my brother said his best friend who lives had another friend who said that. It can't be that way. It has to be fact-based, science-based. I had one of my employees on March 1st, we were mandated that any healthcare worker had to be boosted. She did not want to be boosted. So I sat and talked with her and I said, why don't you want this? And the information she had, she told me about all the side effects and all these terrible things. And I said, so where are you getting that information from? And we are connected with the state. And so we have the ability to go into this website called VAERS, which is the reporting mechanism for every adverse reaction to every injection. And I'm not usually this way, but I just looked at her and I said, that's really stupid to look at that site to think that you're going to get the information you need to make a conscious decision as to whether to be boosted or not. It would be worthwhile for you to expand your search to other areas that give both the pros and the cons to make your decision. She chose not to be vaccinated, no longer works for me. But the thing is that when we rely on social media, it's meant for entertainment in my way of thinking. It's not a reliable source of medical information. The reliable source of medical information would be your healthcare professionals. So whether that be your doctor, family nurse practitioner, that's where you should be going to with your questions about whether you should be boosted or not, or whether vaccine should or should not be used. Hand washing, I won't go there anymore because it's just really important, but I'm going to show you a couple of things. Now, one of the things that you can do to better protect yourself with using your hand washing is short nails. I took my acrylics off and I miss them so much, but I don't have the gunk under my nails that I didn't know, and the acrylic actually absorbs bacteria. So keeping your nails short, like the lady that has her hands around the orange, is really important. The next picture actually shows a bar of soap in a soap dish. That is usually moist and it's collecting bacteria. So I would really highly recommend that people use a liquid antibacterial soap and not using a cloth towel for washing your hands, because it stays moist, which is the environment that viruses and bacteria like to grow in. So using paper towels. I'm very, very conscious of the climate and I don't like to overuse things like paper towels. But in this instance, that's the best way to go. So in my home, when you come to my home, you'll find a thing of liquid soap and paper towels. You're not going to find cloth towels for you to dry your hands on, to help keep you safe and keep you healthy, and me. If you're already vaccinated but have questions, friends or family who still have questions, you can contact the Department of Public Health, or you can call me. My number is going to be at the end of this. More than glad to talk to you about it. Every one of my staff is really well versed now about COVID. We've actually given about we've given 60,000 vaccines and done over 25,000 COVID tests. So there, if somebody is emptying the trash or running the finance department, they all know about COVID. They all know about the precautions. So any of us are happy to talk to you about that. This is my number, 707-573-0223. Now, the important thing is, and I think I mixed up my own slides. So the important thing for my name and number to be up here is, if you or somebody you know wants to be vaccinated, have difficulty going to a clinic for whatever reason, there is no charge to you whatsoever. We will come to your home and vaccinate you. If you have questions about being vaccinated, we will talk with you, probably until you're nauseated and accept the vaccine just so that it will go away. But we want you to have whatever you need. Currently have a 10,000 square foot vaccine site at 779 Sebastopol Road in Roseland. We gave the 1 millionth shot about 4 weeks ago in Sonoma County. So we're really, really pretty proud of that. We don't know where it's going to go with the next dosing. What we do know is that having the booster made a significant difference in the last go around, the last surge. We're kind of anticipating that along with your flu shot every year, you're probably going to be giving COVID vaccine. But some of what is not truly known well is how long the potency of the vaccine lasts. So right now we're looking at about 6 months. And so we just don't know. We don't know. We don't know where kids aren't being vaccinated, aren't being boosted now. Whether that's going to change, we don't know. We just don't know. So some of the statistics that I was going to share with you were the 1 million doses given in Sonoma County, that we have, we've just been notified, the county of Sonoma has just been notified by the state of California that our mortality rate for COVID was 58% less than any other county in California, which is phenomenal, just phenomenal that we were able to do that. We are at about 81% of our county is totally vaccinated. which is also pretty phenomenal when you still have places like Butte County that are less than 40% vaccinated. So that's what I know about COVID, and that's what I'm very, very pleased that I got to be able to come here and share with you. And I really hope that you guys want to have an open discussion about this. I know Mark asked about, should you guys be meeting yet? I certainly can't say yes or no to that, but I can give you recommendations that if it is that it's in a large enough facility that you're able to do social distancing, that other people, everyone be mandated to be vaccinated that comes, and that you're wearing masks and the room is well ventilated. Those were the things that I would think would be imperative in order to keep everybody as safe as possible.
We're just really glad that you came today and gave such a great presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I've missed working with you guys. Maybe,
Yes.
maybe someday.
Yeah. Thank
Take
you.
care. Good to see
Thank
all
you.
of you. Bye-bye.